Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show. Today we've got a really interesting guest, and he's going to be talking about maximizing your own potential. But first, let's introduce Kathleen, the co-host. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you. And thank you all so very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. Peter, we have interviewed many wonderful guests on this show. We've had the great privilege of doing that. But now and again, we get a real gem, someone very young that has seen great success and is willing to take his secret sauce, if you will, and pass it on to all of us. And today is one such guest. And Alan
hmm
Lazaros, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Happy Monday. I'm doing very, very well. Today is a great day. And I don't say that lightly because the last few weeks have been very, very heavy. But usually what I say is this. I'm starting with gratitude because I remember at the beginning of my business, it was crickets. And so now that my schedule is beyond full back to back to backs Monday through Saturday, I just have to stay grateful and stick with it because I remember there's two ways in business. One, it's there's not enough demand, and the other one is there's too much demand. So I far prefer the second one. So thank you both for having me. I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to be here.
Oh,
Good.
wonderful. So
Good to
to
have
give
you.
you, yes, absolutely. So just to give our viewers a little bit of a background about you, you are the founder and CEO of and co-host of Next Level University, which is a global top 100 self-improvement podcast. Wow. He's also a business coach, consultant, trainer, and speaker. And as Peter mentioned, today he's here to yak with us about maximizing your own unique potential. So let's just jump right in. Alan, many people feel so disempowered to realize their own potential because life just gets in the way. They have bills to pay, they have families to take care of. How can you guide someone to dig deep within themselves and uncover their true purpose or maximize, as we said, their own unique potential?
Yeah. So the first stage is the self awareness piece. So uh, anyone, particularly people who had a tough childhood. So my father passed away when I was 2 in a car accident when he was 28. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14, and my stepfather left my family at 14, and everything in between. And there was some good parts of my childhood. I need to make that clear, but
Mhm.
most of it was pretty terrible in hindsight. And so I unintentionally was kind of running from that, and I went into like super achiever mode. So after my stepdad left, he took 90% of the income,
Oh,
and I didn't even know how I was going to go to college. So I just kind of became this sort of twofold. One, I was sort of a social coward who was fear of abandonment for sure. I didn't realize that. None of this was conscious. But I also, so fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are the 4 trauma responses. Uh, Fawn is appease and contort
Hmm.
yourself to fit in so that you don't get abandoned or you don't get left or so that you get love. And I definitely did that socially without knowing it because I'm kind of an engineering esoteric weirdo who now I'm actually being that person, whereas before I kind of wouldn't be. And that, but behind the scenes, I became this sort of super achiever of, okay, I looked into the future and there's no dad, there's no trust fund, there's no generational wealth here. So if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I just was so freaking driven. And so I got straight A's through all of high school. I got my computer engineering degree in one of the best engineering schools in the world. It's called WPI. It's kind of like a mini MIT in Massachusetts. And then I got my master's in business, and then I was off to the races in corporate. And I became a 1% global earner in my early 20s.
wow.
But to answer, yeah, thank you. So, but to answer your original question with how do you get started? You get started by going back. I think you get started by actually looking at the past because I got in a bad car accident when I was 26. And when I say bad, I mean mentally, emotionally, and spiritually traumatizing. However, physically, I was okay, fortunately. But my dad died in a car when he was 28. So for me, I'm 26, and this was no fender bender. So I was really facing mortality. And after that, that's when I started to do self improvement. Because before 26, I was very improvement oriented. I was very achievement oriented. I was very academic and professionally developed resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't as personally developed. I wasn't looking inward as much. And so I think the first place to start to unlock yourself really is to look within. I always joke. I say, if you want a coach, you probably need a therapist. If you want a therapist, you probably need a coach. And honestly, most of us should get both. I joke with my
Mhm.
girlfriend, because she suggested therapy, not in a negative way, but and I've been doing it for a long time now in my 30s, and it's been unbelievable.
Mm.
But I said, men can't even ask for directions. Never mind, get a therapist. I'm just joking. But ultimately, I think it all starts with digging deep within yourself and figuring out you have to reassess and reevaluate your existence. It's an existential crisis moment thing. And the car accident did that for me. But for those of you who don't want to have to go through a bad car accident in order to face that stuff, you really need to look at, okay, what were my childhood traumas? What is my core limiting belief? And we can get into that if you guys want to. But um, if your goals and dreams are not predicated on high self-awareness, not only there's two things that are going to happen. Number one, you're not going to achieve them because they're not aligned with who you really are. Or two, like me, you're going to achieve them and be unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that. I was number two. I achieved my goals and dreams, but I was unfulfilled because those goals and dreams were not aligned with who I really am. And now I'm grateful to say that the work I do is aligned with that.
Wow. Amazing.
Fantastic. Wow.
Amazing. You've explained what got you going and how you went back and all the motivators that got you really going. What motivated you to start sharing your secrets or what you'd found out, your experience with other people and help them? Because that is somewhat unusual. A lot of high achievers stop there. They look after themselves and then they take it easy. But you've gone the extra mile and you're helping others. So what motivated you to do that?
Thank you for that, and I really appreciate it. And I do agree. One of the things that motivated me was just my awareness of that, what you just said. I had all these mentors and coaches and multimillionaires and one billionaire actually, and I was so grateful. I'm kind of like a weird Goodwill Hunting type. Came from very tough beginnings, but was very gifted. And I used to not say that because I was too much of a coward. But the truth is, straight A's in high school, while that's really cool, I didn't have to try that hard. And I'm just very naturally intelligent. So I now try very hard, but before I was definitely resting on some natural talent. And I think because I've been gifted, I think other gifted people have kind of sought me out. So I had these amazing mentors and coaches that my friends didn't have. And I went to one of the best tech schools in the world. WPI is one of the best engineering colleges in the world. And I was able to go because of financial aid and scholarships. So I was around a bunch of geniuses too. I mean, most of my friends from college are all multimillionaires now. So in the 21st century, engineers do very well, particularly computer engineers, right? So that said, how did I sort of flip the script and start sharing my secrets, for lack of better phrasing? My love for self-improvement is one of the answers. My other one was I saw this gap between the people who know. So, for example, one of the chief officers at one of the biggest robotics companies in the world. It's a $1 billion robotics company, and I'm just going to keep it anonymous because I don't want to get into any of that. He's one of my main mentors, and I would ask him all these questions. And I would realize, because I lived this weird sort of Goodwill Hunting-esque life where I surrounded myself with the wrong people, quite honestly. And then but I also had access to these people that were, extremely wealthy. And I was always super curious, and I realized there's a huge gap in awareness. So even just finance. I mean, I didn't take my first finance class until I was in my master's in business in grad school. And I realize almost no one really understands finance that well. And it is alarming because most people, the people who need to understand finance the most are the ones who are the least inclined to actually do it.
That's right.
And then there's these people who understand finance at such a deep level, like this mentor I'm talking to you about, but he doesn't go out of his way to share it with people because they don't care. And he doesn't want to waste his breath, right? So I saw this huge gap. And I'm really trying to bridge that gap between, they say the haves and have-nots, but really it comes down to you have to know better to do better. And as someone who really does at this stage, I'm only 36, but I know a lot. I really do. Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, finance. I kind of understand how the economy works globally, all this stuff. And I know how to build a business. I didn't know a lot about myself. That wasn't until my 30s, but now I'm learning that too. And so at the end of the day, it comes down to this simple answer. Most people don't have accurate thinking, and that's why they're not achieving their goals and dreams. It's like
Yeah.
a self-driving car that has the wrong data. It thinks
Yeah.
it's a road, but it's actually a cliff. It keeps driving off the cliff and then blaming the world. And I think that unfortunately, we think inaccurately about ourselves, others, and the world, how it works and why it works that way. And so we just make poor decisions. And then those poor decisions affect our identity. And then after that, we get really stuck in self-sabotage and that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
just saw this happening and I really wanted to help be a part of the solution.
Right. So
Very good.
what would you say then to someone who says, I just can't seem to get it right. I keep failing. I feel like I'm in the rut. I'm treading water and I just can't get anywhere. How would you help someone that feels that way?
Well, we have something called the learning loop. I wrote an article on my LinkedIn about it, but it's humble curiosity, then it's implement, then it's reflect, and then it's learn, and then it's improve. And no matter what you're doing, that's really even this podcast, right? You guys are however many episodes in. I'm almost 1,900 episodes in, so of course I'm ahead of you guys. And what I mean by that is I'm not better than you. I've done more iterations than you. And I think that that's what we need to think about. So someone who feels stuck, you just got to start really small with an open mind, humble curiosity, starting small. And then when you implement, you're going to get a certain result. And then when you get a certain result, you reflect on it. So I'll use podcasting as an example. So let's say you want to be a podcaster. So your humble curiosity kicks in, you Google it, how to start a podcast, you create a mic and a webcam, and then you figure out what hosting platform. Okay, now you implement, you do your first episode. Then you listen to it and realize, oof, this is harder than I thought. And that's the hard part. Listening to your own content is maybe the worst thing ever. It's so hard, especially in the beginning when you're not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then you learn. You're going to learn something. Ooh, I'm not as good as I thought, or maybe I'm better than I thought, or whatever, depending on your optimism level. And then after that, you improve. Oh, okay, I said this way. Okay, I was a little long-winded. All right, I interrupted Kathleen, my bad. So, and then you improve. Okay, next time I'm going to have more powerful pauses. Next time I'm going to not have my mic behind the camera or in front of my face. So it's just iterative improvements over time. And so if someone feels stuck, what's the next courageous move toward the direction of your dreams, knowing that no one has it all figured out, but that you have enough figured out to take the next step. And then ultimately the next step after that and the next step after that. And I think it comes down to fear. You're either afraid of success and you self-sabotage like I used to, or you're afraid of failure and you're afraid of being seen as a failure or afraid of judgment. And so the three main fears are fear of success, fear of failure, fear of judgment. And some of us have all three. I think all of us have all three.
Sure.
But my main one is success. Most people's main one is failure, or more importantly, being seen as a failure. So, yeah.
And you know what? It might sound so strange to people to say you have a fear of success. But really, it's honestly the way it is. It's either you don't feel worthy of success, and therefore you somehow sabotage yourself in moving forward. And that's how you end up feeling like you're in a rut. Would you agree with that, Peter? Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I spent first 20 years of my career after a brief stint at farming in the corporate world. And the number of times I saw people who were in line for promotion, but were so scared of that next step in success that they did anything to sabotage their chances of getting that promotion, right? I saw it time and time again. And on the farming side, I saw sons who inherited profitable, well-functioning, efficient farms and ran them into the ground in 5 years, not because they were bad farmers, but because the whole aura of success and the responsibility associated with that success was more than they could handle. So they deliberately, I would say deliberately, but indirectly sabotage the success of that business. And I've seen it outside of farming. Yeah, no, you're right. Fear of success is huge.
The if I can add on
Sure.
that, I
Sure.
think it's so important because most people, it seems irrational to be
Yes.
afraid of success. But when I frame it this way, it actually seems very rational. So for me, I never understood because I don't have fear of failure. My business partner said this. He said, I thought this was very, very powerful. And for the psychologists out there, I realize this is an oversimplification. Okay. He said, you are either afraid that all of you is not enough or that all of you is too much.
It's too much.
I'm the second one, and I always have been. So I would kind of dial myself down all the time because I made everyone insecure about their lack of intelligence, and I didn't mean to. I just did. And so The way to explain fear of success and failure is this way. I think we're all kind of in this room and there's a floor and a ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason your peer group matters so much, it now makes sense. We all need a sense of belonging as human beings.
Mhm.
And when I lost, my stepfather and all of his extended family when I was 14, and then a lot of other stuff happened then too, I created a fear of success because when I was more than in high school, it affected my friendships.
Right. Yes.
When I tried to challenge their thinking, I'm an engineer, right? So when you say something stupid, I tended to challenge that.
Sure.
And that never went well with my insecure friends who were
Mhm.
pretending to be smart when they weren't. And I now realize this in my 30s, but back then I didn't. Oh, okay. I guess I won't call you out for being unintelligent. So we are all our peer group. We are afraid. We don't want to be a failure to where we are seen as a failure in our peer group, but we also don't want to be ostracized by being too successful either.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I have a
Mm-hmm.
client of mine who bought a $2.4 million mansion, and she had everyone over to celebrate because this was her dream, and they didn't react positively because that was
Yep.
a big mirror. So Kathleen, it's interesting. Kathleen's like, why not? You believe in yourself a lot. See, people who don't believe in themselves that are pretending they do are very jealous first.
Yep.
They're happy for self second. They're sad for self first, happy for others second. Obviously, you're not. Otherwise, you wouldn't be intrigued by that.
Mhm.
But that's the whole thing. Is there's a lot
Sure.
of people when I reach a new level, some people are very insecure about it because
Right.
now I'm a mirror, particularly
Yep.
people I grew up with, and other people are really happy for me, right? So it's really easy to be happy for others from a distance, and you guys intuitively know this as well. The
Yeah,
more you guys
for
reach
sure.
new levels, Kathleen, you in particular, being beautiful and all that stuff, like
Oh.
there are women in your life who are
I
jealous.
keep telling you.
Oh,
Yeah.
crap.
No, but there are women in your life that's a mirror for.
Yeah.
So they want to see you win, but they don't want to see you win more than them. And
More
that's
than
just an unconscious truth about humanity, unfortunately, particularly insecure people who are pretending to be more than they are.
Yep. What do the Australians call it? Tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I had a very, I'll make it very quick, a very good example of that. A long time back when I was probably in my early 30s, I'd just moved to South Africa and was struggling to get a decent job. And a fairly good friend put me on to a subsidiary company in the same huge conglomerate that he worked for another subsidiary. I got the job and I advanced much quicker than he did. And I got a company car within 2 years of being there, and he never got a company car. That alone, that simple fact that I got the company car ruined the friendship.
Yep.
That completely smashed that friendship. Right?
So
there you
that
are.
person is very insecure and pretending
Absolutely.
not to be. And so their trauma response to you being better than them is for them to avoid you and or lash
Yep.
out. Usually
Yep.
it's lash out first and then avoid. And then we
Right.
internalize that as I'm unlovable. And then that's where fear of success comes in.
Sure. Luckily, that didn't affect me. And one of the criticisms was, well, you were just lucky. That's fine. I can live
You
with
get
that,
lucky a lot, man.
Yeah, I can
You
live
know?
with that. So this is now building on from what you've just been telling Kathleen about. You answered why some people are not successful and fear of success. So I'll use my own personal experience that I was successful in the corporate world. I became a fairly senior manager in a large corporation, marketing manager with a staff of 40 odd people. And it was engineers. Engineers keep coming into this, a very engineering and accounting dominated industry
Nice.
who thought the marketing people came from a different planet. So I knew I knew that I'd hit a glass ceiling. I knew there was no way I was ever going to break through that glass ceiling. And after 10 years, I'd got fed up with the corporate politics and that. So I left and started my own business and was very successful for quite a while. And then
Nice.
partly my fault, partly political, partly geographic, wars in other countries. I lost everything through my business, right? I'd had a really good income, even by today's standards, 4 cars, country estate. And within a few months, I lost the bundle and I had to declare
Whoa.
bankruptcy because I'd guaranteed all my loans. So I went done. And then I moved back to Zimbabwe as a become, and I started working for my brother. I started another business. I met my current partner. We took over the family farm. We were quite successful, not hugely financially because we had to build a farm. We had a really good life. We had horses. We had a lovely life. Politics came in. Government took our farm, put me in prison, and I came to Canada with 2 suitcases. And I've struggled for 20 years in Canada to get back to that level of success. And I can make any
Whoa.
excuse under the sun. I can make any excuse under the sun. The fact remains, and I'm being quite open and vulnerable telling you all this, but I'm hoping it's going to benefit our listeners. I can make any excuses under the sun. It's a different environment. I haven't had any corporate experience in Canada, whatever. Fact remains, I haven't regained that success. So my question to you is, does sometimes past success work against us because we think it's going to be easy? What's your take on that, Alan?
Well, I think you brought a really good point up already regarding personal responsibility.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a difference between an excuse and an explanation. You just explained, okay, the government this, and we went under because of XYZ, external factors. The problem is, I call it the 3 levels of responsibility. So our company's Next Level University. So next level U, pun intended. So that I'm going to be 36 in November. So I always think about Alan version 3.6. I want Alan version 3.6 to be better than Alan version 3.5. Better, stronger, smarter, more virtuous. And a good metaphor would be the iPhone. This is the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And when I was a senior in high school, the very first iPhone came out in 2007 with Apple and Steve Jobs. And it was a revolutionary breakthrough. But compared to this, it would be hot garbage.
Right.
As a technologist, it would be not even close. I mean, it wouldn't even be remotely comparable. So I'm hoping that same thing happens with me. Now, that said, personal responsibility is what that tells me. You said all these things, and you said a couple external factors that affected whether or not you succeeded or failed. But you went back to personal responsibility. You said, ultimately, I'm responsible, something along those lines. And so most people, unfortunately, statistically speaking, I don't want to sound like I'm on an ivory tower here, but statistically speaking, the majority of people do make excuses outside of themselves for why things are the way they are. And unfortunately, the problem is a lot of those are true. Like dad died when I was 2. Stepfather left at 14. Kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14. Only one of them have sort of reconnected with the McCorkles, my birth father family. I had every excuse under the sun to become nothing. The difference I realize is definitely the giftedness, so I'm grateful for that. I also was born in a country that invested in my mind because I got tons of scholarships and financial aid, luckily, but I also earned that too, so there's the duality there. But the 3 levels of responsibility, this I can give, and you guys have a show about personal responsibility when it comes to your well-being and your health. I never used to share this because I was too concerned that I'd be judged, and I just recently have worked through some stuff where I'm like, you know what? I just have to be truthful and candid. Candor is one of my top 3 core values. So this is my candor. It's not your fault that things were bad. It's not your fault that the government is the way it is. It's not my fault that my dad died. It's not my fault that my stepdad left. However, it is my responsibility to make a life out of that. No one's going to come and save me. No one's going to come and save you either. It is your responsibility. So there's 3 levels of responsibility. Level 1 is you are responsible for what you say, think, do, feel, and believe. Level 2, which is another iteration, is you're also responsible for what you don't do, what you don't say, what you don't think, what you don't feel, and what you don't believe. So a lot of times it's not what you did, but it's what you didn't do.
That's right.
It's your lack of self-discipline or whatever it is. The 3rd level of responsibility is the one that people have a really hard time with. And it's because you'll understand why when I share it with you. It's you are also responsible for what you do in response to what's said, done, thought, and believed about you.
Yes.
So your locus of control, you can't control the entire world. You can influence the world, but you can only control what you say, think, do, feel, and believe, what you don't say, think, feel, do, and believe, and what you say, think, do, feel, and believe in response to what's done to you. And to me, I'm always looking at that. I have an 18-person team, and being a leader has been nothing short of the hardest thing ever of all time. And between my group coaching program, between my 18-person team, between I have 26 business coaching clients on my roster currently. And then between all that, I added it all up because I was feeling the weight of responsibility, and I added it all up. It came to 114 people. So I'm indirectly and or directly responsible for 114 people's in success. somewhat responsible for that. And I was feeling the weight of it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to crack like a walnut under this pressure. But ultimately what I figured out is I no longer want to work with people who don't take personal responsibility. Because if they don't take personal responsibility, what I do is I take responsibility. And so I end up taking responsibility for their success more than them.
Right.
And I end up, and my girlfriend called me out. She said, you're pouring all the time into these people that they're thankless. Self-imposed servitude to thankless people is what one of the Roman philosophers said. And so I basically, anyone who doesn't take personal responsibility for their own life, I really do steer clear from nowadays.
Right. And you know what they say, that you can't want something for someone more than what they want for themselves.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of my years on that, genuinely.
Right. Oh, well, Alan, tell us about the Next Level, your Next Level podcast and your courses, please.
Yeah. So Next Level University, Next Level U, pun intended. So I'm Alan 3.6 in November, and that's going to be the next level version of me, Next Level U. Health, wealth, life, and love. 1% improvement in your pocket from anywhere on the planet, completely free. Kevin and I both grew up without dads. He didn't meet his dad until he was 27. I didn't meet my father. My father passed away at 2, and my stepfather left at 14. And we were both raised by women. So my older sister, my mom, his mom and his grandma. So we didn't know this at the time, but when we first got together, we just thought we were having deep conversations on a podcast. We've come to understand now that we have a similar core wound. And I still deal with this, honestly, but I think that I'm still looking for a male role model. I always have. And so the metaphor here is I've kind of become my own male role model. And when we talked about self-improvement, and you asked me that question originally, Peter, why did I start doing this work? I think it comes down to I'm disappointed and upset that no one around me when I was younger was into self-improvement. I didn't have male role models that led by example. I really didn't. And I've looked and I've rewatched the movie of my own life, and I'm disappointed. And that's my truth. I'm wildly disappointed. And that doesn't mean they were all bad, but holy crap, were they not leading by example. And some of them were very full of it, and some of them were very hypocritical, and they're setting a very low bar and a very low standard. And I wanted to set a new standard. So Next Level University is a couple young men growing into adult men, trying to be the male role model that we never had. And ironically, because I think statistically women are far more humble, ironically, the majority of our listeners are actually women. But Next Level University is a place you go to reach your potential. We have a book club. We have monthly meetups every month. We have an app. We do habit tracking and metrics and goals and systems. But really what it comes down to is level up yourself, level up your podcast, level up your business. And as much as that sounds fortune cookie, what it really is a place where you can really be in a community of people who care about their potential. They care about reaching their potential more than some bachelorette or whatever. They just care about working on themselves. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Just hearing you talk about your partner, Kevin, I am so grateful that I was born in a generation where most of us escaped that, right? I had two parents who stayed together for their whole lives, who were really good role models. Grew up in a society and a place where kids had a tremendous amount of freedom. I could ride my horse all day away from home as long as I was back before dark. No one asked any questions, no mobile phones, nothing. And like you, I was lucky at school. I sailed through without doing much homework, without swatting for exams. Had a clear shot at university and decided to go farming. So I'm really grateful for all that. I'm just so sad that I try to pass that on to my boys who are in their late 40s, and they now appreciate the freedom they had in their generation growing up, and I think it's done them well. They're both successful in their own right. It's so sad that so many people now, youngsters emerging from school and college, are not getting that sort of background. So my question, I'm just being grateful and expressing that because you made me think of it. My question though is if someone comes along and says, I need to get going and reinvent a new model of myself, Alan, how do they start with you? Tell us how you take them into the system.
The high level answer is, I help you get clarity on your goals. I help you align the metrics and habits necessary to achieve those goals. And then the last piece is identity, which is what we talked about. Deep fears of success or failure, who you think you are, versus who you really are, strengths and weaknesses, self-assessment type of stuff. But ultimately, the next step would be listen to the podcast. Yeah, that's the next baby step
Okay.
where if you don't resonate with us, you won't resonate with us. And I will just say this too. I'm been doing this mentoring for 10 years, coaching for 7. Literally, I have a tracker, thousands and thousands of hours with individuals from all over the world. One-on-one, full hour-long sessions. I already did one earlier today. It's deep work. And if you want massive rewards for minimal effort, you're not going to like me. So don't even bother. It's just, we're the opposite of that. And to your generation, Peter, I really feel like there wasn't as much entitlement. And I've studied history. There was a lot more, and I'm not trying to be unkind to Gen Z or my generation.
Sure.
But the truth is, wanting massive results for minimal effort is just nonsense. It's not real. And it bothers me deeply, particularly in my own country. So, Kevin and I are trying to bring back the tried and true fundamentals that really do work if you actually work. So humility, work ethic, and self-belief is what we do, and consistency and discipline matter. And I think a lot of people have lost that, particularly in the younger generation. So
Yeah, no, as I said, I'm so grateful that I had some tough bringing up. I was doing lots of chores from the age of 6 and milking cows at 10 and looked after my own horse and all that. But I'm so grateful for that because it's helped me get through so much in life. The other thing, an observation again, just listening to what you're talking about, is I have found that in the later years, and I expect you'll find the same, although I think you're seeing it earlier than I did, certainly the losing the fear of judgment gets a lot easier the older one gets. That's what I've found. Kathleen, I don't know what you find. You're a lot younger than me, but you're in between Alan and me. That's what I found, Alan, that after, I guess, my 50s, I started to think, I don't care whether people think I'm a success or a failure, right or wrong, nuts or otherwise. That's their problem, not mine. So I'm saying to you and our audience, I found it got easier with age. I hope it does for everyone else too.
nice.
Right.
After the car accident, that really released me a lot from the fear of
Yeah.
judgment. Sorry to interrupt you, Kathleen. Yeah, go
Really?
ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'd like to say that I don't have fear of judgment, Peter, but if I was really truly being honest with myself, I think there's still some fear there, because you want to be accepted and liked by people. So yeah. I have obviously something to work on here, right? So
One of the big cures for me was I would have been 54 when they police took me away for not leaving my legally owned farm in Zimbabwe, and I was interrogated for 5 hours by 4 security police. I wasn't tortured. I thought came close at times. It was 5 hours of really serious intimidation, and that got me over worrying about what other people thought of me, believed me.
Whoa.
So,
Well, there's an upside to every downside, right?
oh, for sure, for
That's what
sure.
it is. After that, I'm sure it's not hard to say thank you to someone
That's right.
who's trying to sell you something, right? So
It gets easier.
yeah.
I
my,
think
yes.
Kathleen, back to you.
Yeah. There's a lot of competition in this world, both professionally and personally. What would your advice be to someone who is intimidated by competition, which may be holding them back?
Yeah. Well, I think there's the thing of it's you versus your potential. I was doing hill sprints yesterday. It's a beautiful fall day yesterday in New England, in Massachusetts. It was gorgeous. It was like 75 degrees. And I said I would do 50 before I got outside, and then I regretted that deeply. At like 22, am I actually going to do 50? And that's the you versus you question. And I was thinking to myself, no one's here. There's no audience. No one knows that I'm doing this. I do have a little fitness accountability group, so I got to take a picture and say I'm doing hill sprints today, which makes me feel so significant, right? But ultimately, it comes down to you versus you. And I think that we all intellectually know that. And so I think the world is split into two worlds. You have the real world, which is you behind the scenes when no one's watching. And then you have the social world. And the social world is Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and status and social status. And the truth is, and I learned this from experience, is that when I had all the status, computer engineer, master's in business, making almost $200,000 a year in my early 20s, paid off 84 grand worth of debt in a single year. I had 150 grand in a Vanguard account with money growing tech companies, stocks.
Wow.
And I was miserable internally. And so you have to kind of realize that it's actually very challenging to be externally successful and internally fulfilled at the same time, because what the economy pays for typically is not meaningful work.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to align what work is meaningful for you with what you're actually statistically good at, to the competition thing. Because if you're not statistically good at it, you're not going to make any freaking money.
No.
If I wasn't a strong business owner or a strong CEO or good with people, I could never lead an 18-person team. I never could have built this. Metrics, habits, systems, goals, all this stuff. So I used to be so naive that I thought everyone could achieve their dreams and goals. And over time, having done this work for 10 years and literally coming up on 8,000 hours, podcasting, coaching, training, and speaking, I realized that most people actually won't achieve their goals and dreams. And the reason why is usually it's predicated on low self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I have one person who should be a podcaster. She's a world-class speaker, and she might not. I have another person saying, I want to start a podcast like you. And in my head, it's, you could never win. I'm not trying to be unkind. You just couldn't.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's the truth, is we don't all have the same potential. And so how do you align your true potential and true self-awareness with the things you actually want to achieve? And then how do you not fall victim to the social status trap that we just talked about? Because in the real world, I'm happy, healthy, fulfilled, and productive. My intimate relationship's magnificent. But when I was actually social status man, I was much, much more unfulfilled in my real life. It's almost like you have to prioritize. Do I want to look good, or do I actually want to get better? Because yesterday doing hill sprints, I looked terrible. I looked like I was struggling. Some of my neighbors saw me like, you okay? That's getting better. But trying to look good on Instagram is the opposite of actually getting better in the real world. And so it's you versus your potential. And unfortunately, the majority of us, particularly when we were younger, and I was guilty of this too, we're focused more on social status than we are on actually meaningful work.
Right. Wow.
Okay, we're running
Yes.
well over time, but if
Yes.
you've all got another couple of minutes, Alan, or do
I
you
have to the
another
top
minute
of the
to-
hour. This has
Okay,
been wonderful. Yeah.
so-
So you guys
so
want to
here's-
keep cranking? Yeah.
Yeah, here's one we ask all our expert guests, and you were right at the top of that category, certainly. If you could give one tip to our listeners who probably, some of them listening to too much doom and gloom on the news, politics, war in the Middle East, you name it, the one thing to help them lead a happier, more balanced, more fulfilling life, what would be the first thing you would suggest they start doing today to get there?
Yeah, drink deeply from great books. Unfortunately, the sexiest the information, the less accurate usually.
Yep.
One of our podcast is very successful, but not like in a viral way.
Sure.
And I know why. It's very candid. It's very truthful. I mean, we don't the 3 quick tips to like, there isn't any of that. And there are no 3 quick tips. There's some things that can help you accelerate and grow faster, but ultimately it's going to come down to work ethic, humility, learn as you go, packaging, that. Okay, so what I would say is books. There's a book called The Art of Impossible by a man named Stephen Kotler. We actually interviewed him, and it's behind me, actually. I was listening to it yesterday. Yesterday was a big learning day. I work Monday through Saturday, and then Sunday I try to recharge and rejuvenate. I call it R4, rest, relaxation, recharge, and rejuvenate. And I just learned all freaking day. Housework plus learning plus exercise. And my girlfriend was away. We share a Tesla, so she had the car. So I was just stuck at home. Oh, it's so bad. I love it. I love being stuck at home in my own head. So I must have listened to, I don't know, 2/3 of 2 different books. I listened to several different interviews, and I just poured into my mind. And one thing that's been really hard for me lately is finding content that I don't think is garbage. And to the people that are listening to, I often joke with Kev. I say, we're selling kale outside a candy store, brother. Next Level University is not sexy. It's not fun. It's not shiny. We don't say, oh, self-discipline doesn't work, and here's why, and you need more fun in your life. Like, we're more of the tried and true fundamentals of work ethic, discipline, logic, rationality. You actually do have to work if you want to build your dreams, that kind of thing. Meaningful work actually comes through doing hard things, not necessarily just taking the easy path all the time. So to answer your original question, Stephen Kotler broke down the science, the math of blogs versus books.
Yeah.
So he said that the best ROI for information is books, because he wrote a book called The Rise of Superman, and it's all about flow. And Superwoman too, by the way, for the women out there. But
Mhm.
ultimately, he said, you get 15 years of my life for 5 hours of your time.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm thinking.
Right.
It's hard to find great books. A lot of these new contemporary books are garbage, in my honest opinion.
Right.
But if you find a book with a thick appendix in the back, you can get some really world-class information, and these little things can change your world. So there is no better use of your time when it comes to learning than finding great books from great authors. Just remember, and this is something that frustrates me, some of the authors don't lead by example. You gotta, it is what it is. It's tough for me to see an author who's writing a book about how to reach your potential and they're out of shape. I mean, that is hard for me. But at the end of the day, books are the way. Books are just better than any other form of content when it comes to accurate, research-based, scientific information.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. I'll tell you what I'm reading at the moment, amongst a few others, is On Liberty by John Stuart Mill, economist, published in 1880, somewhere around then.
Cool.
Fascinating. Anyway,
Cool.
Kathleen, back to you. And I've got one follow-up question for Alan when you've done your bit.
All right, Alan, just let us know, how do people contact you?
So I was about to take a drink, but I don't want to just have everyone sit there
No,
and
you
wait
go
while I
ahead.
drink my caffeine. How do you contact me? So the best ways. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. Those are my three main ones. I'm kind of on TikTok, but don't reach out there because my team does that. You can email me, ALAN, at nextleveluniverse.com. And that's the website, nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds. Everything's on there. And the podcast is Next Level University.
Okay.
So
University,
we wanted
okay.
nextleveluniversity.com, but the person is charging way too much money. So we were like, you know what? Nope. Nextleveluniverse.com. And also the person, I'm not a huge fan. He's kind of unkind. So nextleveluniverse.com, spelled just like it sounds, ALAN at nextleveluniverse.com, or you can go to Next Level University. And if you Google my name, all of that will come up for sure. And if anyone does want to reach out, by the way, just please provide context to this episode so that I know where it came from, and because we all get a lot of spam.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
Of course.
Great. And for our audio listeners, all of that information will be in the description on whatever platform you are listening to this on. Kathleen, can I ask my follow-up question before you finish off? Alan, I know looking at your website and looking at some of your personal stuff, you do quite a lot of gym work and you're talking about hill sprints, and obviously looking at you, you keep yourself in pretty good shape. I know the answer from my perspective, and you'll see a picture behind me of me running a 50 miler when I was a little bit younger. Over 40 when I did my last one, so not that long ago. But how important is it, do you believe, that people should keep in good health for their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being and their success in life?
So I think physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. We do health, wealth, life, and love. And so health is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Wealth is how you make your money, meaning is it meaningful work for you? How much do you earn? Is it increasing or decreasing based on where the economy is going and the future is going? And then where do you invest it? Where do you spend it? And then love is your intimate relationship, immediate family, clients, colleagues, mentors, mentees, team, extended family, that kind of stuff. So health is number one, though. If I had to pick one, I said this to Kev. I said, if I gave you $1 billion or you were the healthiest man on earth, which one would you pick? And he said the $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I appreciate his honesty. But he was always afraid he wouldn't be successful. He was, lower class when he was growing up and all that kind of stuff. For me, I would take the health any day of the week. It's the most important thing in the entire world. To me, when I have my health, and it's been hard. I mean, we have an 18-person team. We've been podcasting for almost 8 years now. And it's been tough. There's been ups and downs, and we're coming up on $500,000 in revenue this year, which for a business is nothing, but for a podcast is a lot.
Oh, yeah, huge.
And it's been tough. It's been really hard, it's particularly 2024. But when I wake up in the morning and I feel healthy, I mean, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I have a client actually who has an intimate partner who has late stage cancer. And I just think like, Alan, none of your problems are real problems. You got this. Like, you have your health.
Yeah.
You have your health. You got this. You can do this, right? So I have back-to-backs, 12 sessions a day sometimes. And I'm not going to complain about that when I've got my health. So yeah, it's the most important thing in the entire world. I've actually exercised. I struggle to share this because I don't want to come off as cocky, but Emilia and I started exercising. We started a little NLU Fit Pick challenge for our community, and hers is Evolve, Team Evolve Moves. Evolve is the name of her company. And we started this little challenge March 1st of 2022, and we've exercised every day for 30 minutes a day for 2.5 years.
Very good. Very
Fantastic.
good.
I absolutely agree with that. If you
Yeah.
don't have your health, what do you have? Right?
So,
So,
and again, from the perspective of being a lot older than either of you two, it becomes even more important when you get to my age, when you can still get out of bed in the morning, and I'm walking before the sun comes up out on the country road, and do a lot of other physical stuff. When you can do that
yeah,
at an older age, there's a lot to be grateful for, let me tell you. That's
absolutely.
it for me.
Something for all of us to aspire to, Peter. Thank you for leading by example.
Thank you. Kathleen, back to you.
Well, Alan, it's been an enlightenment. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We so appreciated having you, and thank you also very much once again for tuning into our show. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, we invite you to visit us at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the contacts tab where you will find a short application form, and we'd love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.